we enter hurricane season, what is it that you're telling folks to do?
As every year, be prepared. It doesn't matter the year, doesn't matter what the forecast is, below average, above average. None of that really matters. We have to prepare like we're going to get a storm this year. It's the only prudent thing to do. So we ask everybody to really take a look at their preparations and make sure that they are ready in case a storm comes their way.
And, this year, the forecast from Colorado State said lower than average, and El Nino may be coming back, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day, does it?
It doesn't matter. It really means nothing. It speaks nothing to the potential impacts or the potential landfall of a storm in our neck of the woods. You have to look back at Hurricane Andrew back in 1992, one of the strongest El Ninos on record. Very few storms that year, but it was a Category 5 hurricane that impacted the United States coastline. Hurricane Danny locally in southern Alabama, the Category 1 hurricane during one of the strongest El Ninos. Major flooding, 30, 40 inches of rain. It just really doesn't matter what the outlook is. We have to be prepared because we're in a vulnerable part of the Gulf Coast.
So with us being inland counties, we're covering Stone County, George County, Greene County, and Perry County for you guys. Our big thing is inland flooding.
Yes.
And so what message do you guys have for folks during tropical systems when we're anticipating a whole lot of rain?
We ask people to stay tuned to the forecast. We're going to be talking about potential impacts from a hurricane or a tropical storm. We're not going to be focused on the category of the storm, whether it's a 1, 2, or 3. We're going to be telling people what we expect as far as impacts from heavy rain, tornadoes, etc. So that's why ourselves and the local National Weather Service offices, local broadcast media, really be giving you the information you need to be prepared for potential, especially of inland flooding. We lose a quarter of the people every year. I messed that up.
Sorry, you can start over.
We start over.
Yeah.
Inland flooding kills 25% of all people that die from tropical storm and hurricane situations. That's a quarter of the people. Wind is only about 8%. So we are losing more people from water year in and year out. And people underestimate the power of water. So people really need to be much more cautious when we're talking about inland flooding impacts.
Okay. I just remembered that I wrote down a really quick question that I wanted to ask you based on your the thing that you stole from Hurricane Center dude.
Borrowed.
Yeah, that was great.
Borrowed.
This is part of one of the things that we're doing is talking about how when a storm weakens as it makes landfall or close to landfall or whatever, that there is sometimes a tendency for the overall wind field to expand.
Yes.
Can you explain that to people? You can be as nerdy as you want or as simple as you want, keeping in mind that this show is about education and we're really pushing a lot of science on people. So if it has to be nerdy, that's totally fine. But can you explain that that kind of phenomenon to people? Because I think that, people see, oh, it was a Category 3, now it's a 1.
Right.
I don't have to worry anymore.
Well, basically, a strong hurricane is typically an area of a tight focus of winds, of very strong, intense winds around the eye wall of the hurricane. Well, as that hurricane is weakening and moving over land, that really concentrated area maximum wind kind of collapses and a much broader wind field develops to where a much larger percentage of people could be seeing tropical storm or even minimal hurricane force winds for a long duration, which certainly can bring down a lot of trees. And trees is the big issue for inland areas. You bring down trees, especially if they're near mobile homes or residences, that could be a perilous situation. So when these storms move inland, yes, they are weakening, but they are expanding out their wind field as well as the potential rainfall.
And so in a nutshell, the idea could be, and maybe you can speak to this, that even on a weakening storm, the impacts could actually be greater.
They can. Look at Hurricane Matthew from last year. As it moved up the southeast Atlantic coast, it quote-unquote weakened to below a major hurricane. But yes, it produced over 20 fatalities from inland flooding in North Carolina, and the storm never made landfall. It stayed offshore, but yet it killed the most people in North Carolina when it wasn't a major hurricane.
Perfect. Is there any message you want to send to folks that maybe I didn't ask about, or something you guys that locally are trying to really educate people or push people about?
It all comes down to preparedness. One of our major themes this year is it doesn't take a major hurricane to produce major impacts. We really want people to not focus so much on the category of the storm and focus more on what we're mentioning as potential impacts and have that safety plan in place. Put you and your family in a better situation by being prepared now and not be scrambling hours before the storm hits.
Real quick, okay, one last one. A hurricane kit, people are putting together hurricane kits and plans and everything. Is that something that people should do today, or is that something they can wait until a hurricane forms?
Now is the time. You don't want to be with the last stash of people going out to the stores, emptying out the shelves. You want to have your supply kit now so you don't have to scramble when the situation arises. So you can just calmly be prepared for the storm. That stress factor will be much better for you and for your family, knowing that you have your kit now and you don't have to scramble at the last minute.